If I was playing the clans, if I was playing Jade Falcon, these words, these comments would require a challenge. The Desgrai could not let this pass, but it's an interesting question and brings up the point. We were talking about vehicles last week, pushing up that to my Battletech archive here, the Battletech playlist, exploring some really, really fast, light, low battle value attack helicopters, maybe to try and get some motive hits or deal with infantry. And this led into the idea of initiative sinks. And I often make mention of using infantry as initiative sinks and some of the thought processi behind it. So let's kind of explore that. Then we'll jump into the comments. Excellent comments. House rules. Fritz, why aren't you playing with house rules with regard to this? I mean, it could be a little bit beardy. It could be a little bit power gamey. It has that feeling. And I think so to an extent, but I wanted to kind of clarify or push out some ideas on that. Now, we know with Battletech's interesting, where many other war games, you want to go first. Warhammer 40K, I want to go first because I'm going to smash you before you can smash me. Or I'm going to roll the dice and reduce your miniatures before you get to act. Battletech Initiative, the winner goes second, and you alternate back and forth. If you have a lot more units than your opponent, you might move multiples when it's your turn. You know, maybe move one piece each, and on the last move two. But this gives you superior positioning. And the initiative phase, I'm going to make a note here. We need to look at the initiative phase in Battletech because this is something that we want to master, we want to keep in mind, and is vitally important because you have the advantage of knowing where your opponent's going to go. You also have the advantage of limiting their actions. So let's kind of narrow this down to just a very, very static scenario. I've got a battle master. You've got a battle master. We should be best friends just based on that. We're 3 hexes away. If you lose initiative and you have to move first, just forget about other units for a second. That's massive. That's huge for me. I'm going to be able to react. So what would you do? Try to back up. So this way I at least can't get rear armor or get vulnerable, but I can't run up and get hex to hex like I'm going to punch you because then you're just going to move around and get rear armor. Initiative is key. On a side note, which is why once you start losing units in Battletech, that becomes a major problem because even if you win initiative, your opponent is still going to be able to move certain units first that they don't want to move, forcing you to move your key units. It's a powerful phase of the game. So this idea of initiative sinks, taking infantry, and I won't even say massive amounts of infantry. I mean, admittedly, in a combined arms game, I'll try to take 4 to 6 stands of infantry. I'll put 2 in a Karnov, and the rest, depending on the battle value, depending on my lance composition with my mechs, they might be jump infantry. They might just be infantry on foot to kind of set up a defensive perimeter, maybe with some field guns in the back with the longbows, or my artillery. But an initiative sink is where even if you lose initiative, or if you win initiative, you say, okay, it's my turn, this infantry is going to stay. You burn your initiative markers on units that are inconsequential, or we're just going to hang out and do nothing anyway. So that just overwhelms your opponent and forcing them to move their key units first. So this brings up kind of a rules as written, raw rules as interpreted. I mean, those are the rules. Was it ever really intended tactically? Yes, no, maybe. This now leads into house rules. I have seen house rules, and I've seen some very good sets of rules that will play and say, look, the mechs go, it's kind of like the Aerotech stuff. You have a separate phase for infantry or a separate phase for non-mech units. I've seen it mainly a separate phase for infantry to represent the fact that they are very slow moving. I mean, they're not as nimble as a mech. They're definitely not as fast as a vehicle. So they should move on their own set. I understand that because it prevents that initiative sink. It prevents that initiative burning. But with war games, whether I agree or not with the rules, I like to play personally rules as written. because that gives us a universal currency. That gives us the ability, when I go and play with different groups or different friends, we're all on the same page with expectations. We all know how to build our list, and there won't be any surprises. So I'm not against house rules in any way, but I try to stick to as close to the rules as possible. I will say, in playing, and I believe this is true of any war game, we want to look and say, what is the expectation of our opponent? If I build a narrative list and you build a competitive tournament list, I'm going to get crushed. There's no fun in there. So I am very aware ahead of time to say to my opponent, or to say, hey, what kind of game you want to play? And what we do is we kind of go down a checklist. Is there a specific mission you want to play? And a lot of missions are just beat each other up and blow stuff up. But is there a particular mission we're feeling? Then based on that, battle value. What battle value do we want to play? 6K, 8K, 12K. Then just a real quick rundown. What kind of units? Do we want to just stick to mechs? Sometimes we do that. Do we want to open it up to total warfare and have infantry and vehicles? Do we want to bring in artillery? This is kind of the checklists. Mechs, absolutely. Vehicles and infantry, yes or no. Then underneath that, artillery, yes or no. Underneath that, do we want to have air support, yes or no? So this way, if I'm showing up with 5 to 6 infantry units, my opponent is also. There's an equal chance for that to happen. So I don't agree or disagree. It could be a little bit beardy, but I do point it out in my videos and my podcasts because, again, for the battle value, you should have infantry in your list no matter what. It's part of the Battletech universe, and it's minimal battle value buy-in, even if you just get a Karnov or get some APCs. As soon as you go into goblins, I'm a big fan of goblins. I am. But as soon as you get into goblins, it does make it a little bit more expensive. And now you're riding that fine line where, do I go for a light mech or a bunch of goblins? A bunch of goblins, a bunch of light mechs. I kind of cap it at, usually, if I'm going full mech, Karnov, 2 stands of infantry, 2 goblins, 2 infantry complements, and then 2 static, usually jump infantry, just on their own, to work with my longbows and other backfield units. And that's kind of the infantry force. That's potentially a lot of initiatives to burn, but that's one of the things that we want to explore or look at. So I've got a couple of notes here. We're going to go into initiative in detail and look at what we want to be aware of and why it is so important in Battletech.